8 rappers who lied about where they're from. In hip-hop, image is important, even more so than other genres of music. In the day and age of self-promotion and branding, everything about a rapper's image plays into their sales. Of course, every rapper needs a city to hold down, too. From the genesis of hip-hop to the East Coast-West Coast rivalry that dominated the 90s, where you're from has always been important in hip-hop. But how much of this is legit, and how much is just branding? This list of 8 rappers shows that oftentimes, rappers aren't from where you think they are. Before we start, make sure you click the like button and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Number 8, Machine Gun Kelly. Machine Gun Kelly has enjoyed a successful solo career while holding down his hometown of Cleveland, Ohio. Through his success as a solo artist, he has enjoyed the privilege of playing around the world many times over to worldwide acclaim. What you might not know about him, however, is that even before his success as a rapper, Machine Gun Kelly was a well-traveled man, or, well, child. Originally born in Houston, Machine Gun Kelly was born into a family of missionaries, whose religious work took them across the globe, with a young MGK in tow. Living stateside led them to spending their formative years growing up in Denver and Chicago, but interspersed in that time were trips to Kuwait, Egypt, and Germany as well. It wasn't until his high school years, at 14 years old, that MGK actually settled in Cleveland, attending Shaker Heights High School. While we can definitely understand his desire to rep his high school hometown, it would be pretty cool to see MGK embrace his international background more. So far, all we have is Mr. Worldwide, aka Pitbull, and we all know the Miami native is putting that all on for show. How many rappers do you know who rep Kuwait, Egypt, or even Denver? Just saying, that'd be pretty sick. Number 7, Migos. Relatives and icons, the 3 Migos have quickly risen through the ranks of the rap game to effectively become the faces of Atlanta rap. It might be surprising then to find out that none of them are technically from Atlanta. The 3 young men grew up in the adjacent city of Athens, Georgia, about 70 miles away from Atlanta. Around the time they were in middle school, they moved about half the distance closer, settling in Lawrenceville, which is about 30 miles from downtown Atlanta. It is from here that the trio began representing Gwinnett County, which Lawrenceville falls in, but Atlanta itself does not. I do have to shoot them some bail though, as they do reference the North Side in many of their songs. But most of the time they don't let on to the fact that they're not really from Atlanta. In any case, none of this stopped the success of Migos. And frankly, why should it? The more we go down this list, the more you should realize that what matters most is how you make use of the opportunities presented to you. Number 6, Soulja Boy, another rapper who reps ATL. Also, being one of the first to do so, Soulja Boy has enjoyed a resurgence of relevancy recently due to some weird PR stunts to go with his musical success in the late 2000s. Of course, we would associate his musical style with the Atlanta area as well, with its trap-influenced beats and southern delivery. But as it turns out, by the time Soulja Boy was cranking out hits like Kiss Me Through the Phone and Crank That, he wasn't actually living in Atlanta. Originally born in Chicago of all places, Soulja Boy moved to Atlanta as an infant. Frequent misbehavior led to his mom getting fed up with his antics, and she sent him off to live with his father in the small town of Batesville, Mississippi, when he was 14.
Mississippi shawty, 27 tattoo shawty. Nah, man. Down here in my old hood, man. Down here in Mississippi, man. Look, take a look around the place. I'm pretty sure y'all remember that truck. When I was sitting by that truck and I had on.
This ended up being the best thing that ever happened to him, as his father provided him with a budget recording studio, and Soulja Boy began uploading sounds to SoundClick shortly after. The rest, as they say, is history. Number 5, Gucci Mane. Again, another mainstay of the Atlanta trap scene, Gucci Mane helped to define the Atlanta trap sound, and remains a pioneer of the genre to this day. His musical outpost remains undefeated, with 13 studio albums and about 71 mixtapes to his name, not to mention countless collabs. By all accounts, Gucci is Atlanta through and through. What many people don't know though, is that he actually moved there when he was only 9 years old.
The flair, to me, is the name I made up, that means Junior. And Gucci Mane was my father, that's where I get the name from, you know what I'm saying? It had nothing to do with clothes and not knocking Gucci clothing, but it was our family name that came down, passed down from my grandmother to my father to me, you know what I'm saying? 3 generations of Gucci Mane. So, other than that, you know, so I started out in Birmingham, Alabama. I was raised there. I moved here when I was like 9 years old, went to school.
Prior to that, he was being raised by his grandparents in Bessemer, Alabama, across state lines from the city he helped to reshape and innovate. He lived with his grandparents while his mother attended college to finish her degree. With his father on the run from police for dealing drugs, a young Gucci grew up mostly raised by his grandparents until his mother packed up their things and moved to Atlanta when he was 9 years old. It was rough from the get-go. Gucci's mom planned on moving in with her new boyfriend, had, but decided against it at the last minute. It wasn't until Gucci's father stepped in and put Gucci and his mother in a hotel did they have a stable living situation. His father relocated to Atlanta to raise his other children. From there, Gucci and his mom settled in East Atlanta, and he would go on to become the face of Atlanta trap from there. Number 4, DaBaby. DaBaby has successfully marketed himself as the first mainstream rapper to blow up from Charlotte, North Carolina. With singles like Bop and Suge, it isn't hard to see why. But as it turns out, it wasn't until DaBaby, real name Jonathan Kirk, was 8 years old that his family actually moved to Charlotte. Prior to that, he spent his childhood in Cleveland, Ohio with his family.
But I don't think we've ever had you on a station, man, to really explain the city and everybody your ties to Cleveland, man.
Yeah. I was born here. Yeah, I was born here.
You was born here, like, then when did you get up?
Like Big Boy said, it's not where you're from, but where you pay rent. Having said that, rappers like DaBaby have a problem when it comes to deciding which city to rep. It's safe to assume that Charlotte had more of an impact on his transition to adulthood than Cleveland did. But would he say he's from Charlotte or Cleveland? I'd say Charlotte, seeing as he attended elementary, middle school, and high school in the city. Despite that, there's still a lot of people who believe you had to be born somewhere to actually claim that's where you're from. Number 3, Eminem. Probably the first name you think of when you think of Detroit, Eminem has been putting it down for the city in his music as well in film, playing a version of himself in the semi-autobiographical 8 Mile. 8 Mile, the road itself, is known as the economic and cultural dividing line between the affluent white suburbs of Detroit and the rougher, poorer regions of the inner city. Interestingly, some Detroit natives maintain that Eminem was not actually from Detroit. They claim that he actually went to school in nearby Warren, a different town outside of Detroit. While it is still pretty close to the 8 Mile road, it's not even in the same county as Detroit. Beyond this, M's childhood was mostly spent in Missouri, where he was born. Growing up in an unstable household, M and his mom rarely stayed in one home for more than a year or two, and spent time shuttling between Michigan and Missouri, with stints in St. Joseph, Savannah, and Kansas City. Number 2, 21 Savage. Known for his menacing lyrics and laid-back, almost whispering style of rapping, 21 Savage has been claiming to be from Zone 6 of Atlanta since we found out about him. That's where he filmed all of his videos, and we have no reason to believe that he had lived anywhere else in his lifetime. He seemed to be about as Atlanta as it gets. This is why it was one of hip-hop's biggest cultural moments in 2019, when he was arrested by ICE?
Walk us through February 3rd, just a few hours before Super Bowl is about to take place here in Atlanta, and you get pulled over. What happened?
I don't even know. I was just driving and I just seen guns and blue lights. And then I was in the back of a car and I was gone.
They tell you you're under arrest?
Nah, they didn't say nothing. They just said we got Savage.
It was initially revealed that 21 was unlawfully present in the United States, while apparently being a convicted felon, and that he had entered the US in 2005 at the age of 15, coming from Britain. In typical internet fashion, they turned this into a memeable moment, and for the next few weeks, there was nothing but British 21 Savage memes. It was later found out that a lot of information ICE released to the public was incorrect. Firstly, 21 was actually born in a small country in the Caribbean called Dominica. Secondly, he moved to Atlanta way before the age of 13, as his manager revealed that they both had the same 3rd grade teacher. Number 1, Tupac. Time has continued marching on since his death, but Tupac Shakur's legacy and legendary status has only grown since then. As the face of the West Coast movement in the 90s, and the face of the feud that would ultimately cost him his life, as well as the life of his former friend Biggie Smalls, Tupac's status in the world of hip-hop is unquestionable at this point. But as we move further away from the events that cemented his legacy, we also tend to miss out on the finer details of his life. Of course, we associate him with California and the West Coast, but many forget that he was actually born in Harlem, New York, and spent his formative years there. He even spent some time in Baltimore, Maryland as well. It wasn't until he was 17 years old that he actually made the trip to Cali, settling there with his family and attending high school outside of San Francisco. While you could argue that his upbringing doesn't matter, in this case, it certainly did. Tupac's family was filled with radicals and members of the Black Panther group, who were active in New York, and ultimately prompted the family to move and escape persecution. It's another chapter in the Tupac story that is progressively getting lost with time. So, did anyone on this list surprise you? Did we forget anybody? Let me know in the comments section, and before you leave, don't forget to click the like button and subscribe to our channel.